It's the Metro on 1019 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham.
Hey, Tia. I'm Sam Corey. How you doing?
I am trying to control my excitement because it's a special day on the Metro. It is Sam Corey's birthday.
Yeah, it is. It is my birthday.
Happy birthday, Sam.
Thank you, Tia.
I'm literally trying to hold it back. All of this excitement that I have inside of me right now.
I see it bottled in you.
Yes.
It's just ready to erupt and explode.
Yes. So happy birthday. That is a special Metro birthday for Sam Corey. But what is on the show today? Gratiot. It is a really dangerous road in Detroit, but now the city is collaborating with the state of Michigan to change that. We'll speak with a Michigan Department of Transportation official about those plans later in the hour. But first.
That's right. First, everyone in this country is expected to get a K-12 education, but funding that expectation falls on the many, not the few. That's because schools get funded by federal, state, and local institutions in America. And in Michigan, schools rely a lot on local millages for funding. Generally, that's okay. But in the last few years, Michiganders across the state have been voting down millages that fund their local schools. So far this year, voters statewide have rejected about half of the 44 bond requests that have been proposed. So why are localities slapping down proposals to raise money for local schools? How are educators responding? And what might it mean for the schools themselves this year? To discuss this and more, we have Isabel Lohman here. She is an education reporter for Bridge, Michigan, and has been writing about the issue for that publication alongside Gongwer News Service. Isabel, welcome to the Metro.
Thanks for having me.
Also, before I get into this, there's a lot of birthdays. I got to say happy birthday. It's your birthday tomorrow.
Happy birthday, Isabel.
Thank you. Love an October baby. Love to be part of the collaboration here.
Yay. It's so great. We're so glad you're here. Wonderful way to start this show. I know T is super excited. But let's get to these millages. How did you uncover this trend that voters are specifically voting down millages that would otherwise support their local schools?
Yes, so Gongwer News Service has been doing the legwork on this for years. They've been tracking this data, and we decided to work with them to really figure out what the trends were. They had a hunch. We verified that hunch. We talked to a lot of folks, and we figured out that there is this downward trend when it comes to people supporting school bonds.
And so how long has the trend been going on for, and what are we looking at here? What does this look like?
Yeah, so the data in our story goes all the way back to 2018. We also take a look at specifically 2020. We had the midterms in 2022, and schools have been putting up some bond requests even in 2024. And we know going into this November election, about 1 in 10 public school districts are asking taxpayers for additional funds.
So you found that voters specifically are supporting things like parks and rec centers. They're supporting senior, citizen facilities, but they're not supporting schools. Specifically, they're not supporting millages that would go to local schools. Why is that the case, to the best of your knowledge?
Yeah, so we talked to a lot of experts for this story, and they have a variety of reasons why they think this is happening. There's a couple things. One, they think it might be that when inflation is tight or your wallet is tight, you still feel like you need to support the police and the roads and the libraries, but you know your kids are still going to get an education even if this bond doesn't pass. That's one idea. Another idea is that the schools got a lot of money from the federal relief funds, about $6 billion, and there's this idea that maybe schools don't need more money right now. That's another idea. And then another idea is just this idea that maybe voters are being a little bit more skeptical about schools in general. Maybe they still want to support schools, but they don't want to support them at the size of these bonds. And they're asking districts to go back to the drawing board and lower what they're requesting. Okay.
I want to get into some of those in a second, but just to clarify, where is this happening in Michigan? Is this localities across the state? Is this redder or more bluer politically localities? Where are we seeing this trend?
Yeah, so our data reporter, Mike Wilkinson, went deep into the data, and it is true that across the board, these approvals are down, but they are more down in Republican-leaning areas.
Okay, more down in Republican-leaning areas. I guess, do you understand why that's the case?
No.
Okay. All right. If you're just joining us, we're discussing why Michiganders have been generally voting down millages to support their local public schools, but have been supporting other millages that give money to public spaces like parks and rec centers, with reporter Isabel Lohman. So I want to get into some of the reasons why maybe people aren't voting for millages to support their local schools. School choice seems to be maybe one of the things that come into play here. There's just more options for people. There's private schools, there's charter schools, And if you're sending your child to a private or a charter school, then there's less incentive to give money to a public school. Does that seem like a viable reason?
It seems like a viable reason. It's important to note charter schools are public schools in Michigan, but when we did our analysis last year, we found that 1 in 4 students attend a charter school or public school district other than the one they live in. And that does not include the students who are choosing to forego the public system altogether. Another component of this is, so you might not send your kid to the local district and you might not think it's important to then fund that local district. We're also a state that's aging, which means that folks that don't have kids in the district, maybe don't have grandkids in the district, might choose to not fund the school district because they don't have a personal connection to it anymore.
That's really interesting. Yeah, we're definitely an aging state. And I saw this. I was a reporter out in California in a small town, and you saw it was an older place and it was harder to get money for local schools. I want to talk about something else that seems to maybe be a reason. We were talking a little bit yesterday, Isabel, but and this one we didn't get so much to, but I wanted to bring it up, which was the rise of homeschooling and the distrust that some parents have with schools, particularly since the pandemic. There are a number of parents, rightly or wrongly, that were upset with their schools for staying closed for in-person learning for a really long time during the height of the pandemic. I'm wondering if there is some resentment from parents, if in your reporting you're talking with parents and teachers and you're finding that some parents are upset with how long schools were closed down, and that's led to more homeschooling and also just a little bit more distrust in the local public school system.
Yeah, I think that's definitely plausible. So you do have those parents who were upset with how long their local school districts stayed closed, and you saw them moving with their feet. I mean, look at Ann Arbor Public Schools. They saw a pretty big enrollment drop after they had been virtual for a long time. You also see this homeschooling model where it's not necessarily just like the mom teaching the kid at their home anymore, right? You have co-ops, you have a lot of resources, you have people banding together so parents can work together to homeschool their kids. There's just more options than there previously were, and I think the pandemic opened up those options for some families who wanted to take advantage of it or who may be on the fence to begin with.
What has the reaction been from superintendents? I mean, I imagine their hair is like on fire if you can't fix buildings, if you can't, provide a safe place for students to learn. That's going to impact the learning process.
Absolutely. I think superintendents, they want to put a brave face on and they want to communicate the value their districts have to the community. But it is, of course, harder to run your operation if you don't have the funds. So I think you're seeing a couple different things. You see superintendents switching from bonds to sinking funds. Sinking funds are pay-as-you-go savings accounts. There's still a tax increase, but you're not borrowing all this money and then having to pay fees and interest on them. I think you're also seeing superintendents be vocal about the need for these passages, whether that's a community meeting or talking to local leaders, et cetera. And then I think there's this more statewide push and longer conversation about how do we fund schools in the first place. That's been an ongoing thing in Michigan. That's pre-pandemic, that's post-pandemic, that is maybe forever. But I think that's a broader discussion happening right now as well. Yeah,
I want to go back. We were talking a little bit earlier about the ways schools get funded and the way that people understand this. Recently, of course, during the pandemic, schools got a lot of funding from the federal government, and then it came through the state government, and then that went to localities. And some of that money, a lot of that money was one-time funding, so schools have had to sort of reckon with that. But I'm wondering if people, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but I'm wondering if people are really aware that the federal government can just fund schools, and so they're expecting the federal government to fund their schools, or if something else is going on. In other words, I'm wondering how well people understand the mechanism by which their local school gets funded.
I don't know, honestly. I think it's a complicated process, and I don't blame voters for everything that they have going on in their lives for sort of taking for granted the structure that we have right now. I think most people know that the federal government gave a lot of money during the pandemic, and I think a lot of people said, hey, you should be using it in X way, and some schools did it and some schools didn't, right? We see this in the debate about tutoring. Did schools use it enough for tutoring? We see schools who used it to help do building upgrades for safety, and I don't fault superintendents for doing that, but I think there are some people who said you should have used that on academic catch-up programs instead. And now you're seeing that tension, right? Where schools who maybe don't have the funds to improve their buildings are going to the voters and saying, hey, we really need this to get done. Yeah.
I mean, I guess the other question is kind of a big picture one, which is, are local millages just a bad way to fund schools? Are there any superintendents that are like, this is not viable, we should have the federal government funding schools?
That's a great question. I haven't heard that from superintendents. I have heard as sort of an evergreen thing from superintendents that the state really needs to look at how it's funding schools and what it should look like in the future. I've been in Michigan for almost 3 years, and it feels like every few months we have a new study that comes out that says, hey, the state is underfunding schools at X amount. Or we have some sort of report that comes out that says the test scores aren't good or something else isn't happening. So I think there's a lot of movement from superintendents that want to see change, but I would say it's more at the state level than the federal level.
And so I guess what should we expect this year, the coming years for schools if they're not getting the proper funding? Like what will be the consequences? What are the things that superintendents are going to be doing? How will students be managing all of this?
Yeah, I think it'll be on a local by local basis. I think it's possible that superintendents will say, we didn't succeed, we'll try again. I think it's possible that you'll see more people move with their feet. If they see a local school district down the road that has a better athletic field and that's important to the family, they might choose to move. So I'm curious if we'll see choice go up.
That's interesting.
I don't know exactly what the infrastructure is going to look like. I don't know if the legislature has the will or the way to change the funding system at this point. Obviously, it's an election year. I don't think anyone wants to rock any major boats. But I think there are broader conversations about what happens next.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll have to leave it at that, and we'll be looking at your reporting. Isabel Lohman, reporter for Bridge, Michigan. Thanks so much for joining us on the Metro.
Happy birthday, Isabel.
And happy birthday!
Thank you.
This is the Metro on 1019 WDET FM. You just heard from Sam Corey. I'm Tia Graham. Today, expect sunny skies, 67 degrees. Tomorrow, Wednesday, sunny, a high of 66. Thursday, sunny, a high of 64. And Friday and Saturday, we'll see our last little bit of temperatures in the 70s. Then afterwards, it's sweater weather.
Ooh, yeah, I like it. I like that fall weather.
It's okay.
All right. You're already missing the summer. You're like, I want to go back. I want to go back.
I'm in a snuggie right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to enjoy it because I know it's going to get cold. It's going to get real cold. But in other news, the Jewish Federation of Detroit and Bloomfield Township was vandalized early Monday morning. The incident happened on the anniversary of last year's Hamas attack that killed hundreds of people in Israel and led to a war that's killed tens of thousands of Palestinians. David Kurzman is the senior director of community affairs for the Federation. He calls the incident not just an attack on the organization, but attack on the community. And I just want to say, Tia, as a Jewish person, living in this area, my heart just breaks in so many different ways by what is happening. It's been a really long year of holding a lot of really hard things together and of a lot of disappointment from leaders and you hope for change, but it's a really hard time, and I just want to hold that space for Arab Americans, for Jewish Americans. This is a hard time, and I don't know. You hope for something better, but it's really tough.
It's the best we can do is hope for the best and hope that people are safe and protected throughout this conflict. I mean, it's been going on for a year, like you said, and it's been extremely tough, especially living in southeastern Michigan with this, the people and the communities that we have represented here. So, once again, hoping for the best, really hoping that we can see into this soon.
Yeah, and I want to push and advocate people to hold a lot of hard things together and not pit each other against one another. There's a lot of Islamophobia. There's definitely anti-Semitism. Let's not let that get the best of us, or the worst of us, I should say.
Beautiful way to end it. Coming up on the Metro, we'll talk about all the things that are happening this year with StoryFest on Thursday and the importance of telling stories. It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. I am Tia Graham here with Sam Corey on his birthday.
Hey, Tia, it is. Yeah,
Happy
this is
birthday.
great. Nowhere else I'd rather be.
Oh, man. Don't get me. You know how I get. Don't
It
get me
is so fun.
started.
It really is. It's so great.
But
being
you
here
know
with
what?
you.
I want to hear that story and thinking about storytelling.
Ooh.
You're listening to our show right now, and that means you're listening to stories. Well, that means you are someone who probably would enjoy Detroit Story Fest, an event that blends a range of different storytelling techniques, including live podcast journalism, first-person narratives, original scores, and performances. Story Fest is occurring this Thursday at the Detroit Film Theater inside the DIA in partnership with Back Pocket Media. Detroit's local media members, including WDET, will present local stories that combine multimedia elements. And we do have some of those storytellers with us here. But first, joining us to talk more about Story Fest is McArdle Hankin. Hankin is one of the producers of Story Fest. I want to say thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thank you, Tia, for having me. It's really, really exciting to be in Detroit and to be on your show.
Yes! And then we have journalist Con Centauri Davis, who is a fan, who is a friend of the show, and Quinn Kleinfelter as well, friend of the show, and a longtime just amazing journalist in the city of Detroit. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you, and happy birthday, Sam.
Yay!
Thank you.
Same to you, Sam, and I'm very impressed with the smooth way you got into this segment, Tia.
Oh.
You know, if you like stories, you'll like Story Fest. That's true.
Ooh. I learned that from you, though. You know, you're the king of that.
Yeah, the king of smoothness. That's
Oh,
me.
yeah, smooth operator over there.
Right.
So, just McArdle, we're going to start with you. So, what is Story Fest? Where did this idea come from?
So, yeah, Storyfest is, at its core, it's live storytelling on stage. So for those of you who maybe are familiar with other storytelling platforms like The Moth or Pop-Up Magazine when they were around, it's sort of, modeled after these things, but we put our own spin on it, I guess. So it started years ago. We were producing these events in San Francisco, and we saw that whenever we'd have a journalist on stage, our audience, who at the time was younger and really scrappy, and didn't have much budget, they were hanging out after our shows to buy beers for the journalists that they had just heard on stage. And I thought that was so interesting. These were people that I was used to seeing at house parties, and here they were staying late after our shows to talk to journalists. And so, using that insight, basically thought, I wonder if there's a way where we can work directly with different news organizations around the country and help them take their best stories from podcasts, from print journalism, their investigations, and find a way of taking them and putting them on stage. And that's what we're doing with StoryFest.
And when you're going through this process, how are you finding or looking through, different things to find these particular journalists to ask to be a part of it? Are you just going around giving a blanket ask, or are you seeing some of the things that you're liking and saying, hey, I want to see if they would want to tell that story in a different way?
All the above. So we'll work directly with our media partners, and oftentimes the editors will suggest stories. These are stories that they think are still relevant to their communities or that they're really proud of, and they want to find a new medium for the stories to live in. And then we ourselves will, do a lot of research. We'll talk to people on the ground. We'll scroll through Twitter. We'll get leads, and then ultimately we end up sort of, talking to a lot of different journalists and then picking stories that make the most sense together. And so we're really trying to create a lineup that has a lot of different emotional tenors and tones. And so, that's our job, is sort of curating something that hits a lot of those beats.
Yes, and we do have two of those storytellers with us. We're going to bring Con into the conversation. Now, Con, you've been on the show before. You're a longtime hip-hop journalist here in the city of Detroit, not just hip-hop, music journalist here in the city of Detroit. And I want you to give listeners just a sneak peek of the process, your behind-the-scenes process of getting prepared for something like this.
It was a series of meetings in which we met via Zoom, and we talked about my particular story, and we kind of broke down the certain segments of it, and the parts that could be used, maybe multimedia usage as far as on screen and different videos that have my subject matter. What I really like about it is because, we're still kind of at a time where we're trying to figure out the future of journalism and how to present it with the same authenticity and integrity to audiences, and I think this definitely does that.
Yeah. And that's one of the questions I was going to ask Quinn Kleinfelter, who is a WDET reporter as well, bringing Quinn into the conversation, just finding different ways of telling stories. This is no dig to you, Quinn, because you know you're my buddy. You've been in the industry for a while, so you've seen changes and you've seen things evolve and move along. In what ways is this something new and unique and fun for you to do and dive into?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out where the dig was.
Oh.
That wasn't as bad as I was expecting. Well, I mean, people that have listened long to public radio, many of them are probably familiar with The Moth, as McArdle was saying. And this is akin to that, but I think the two differences, one is that it's got a lot more entertainment elements to it. I mean, when we were going through some of the stuff that I was going to do in my story, and they were saying, we've got to get this done because we've got to get it to the musicians, and they're going to bring the songs up here at the end and stuff, and I had this feeling of, oh my God, it's going to be like, the Indiana Jones theme. There'll be a Quinn theme. He's here.
I'd listen to that.
Oh, for sure. I'll tape that if there is one. But the other is what McArdle was saying to begin with, which is there are a lot of people that are interested in the backstories of how these things that actually get out on the air or online come to be. And I have kidded with Sam a lot, about sometimes the conversations among producers about why are we going to do this or what's going on. And sometimes I think those are almost more interesting than what actually winds up on the air. Not from you, Tia, of course, but in general.
Not on the show.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that's and this gives an ability to do that and do it in front of people and kind of say not just the fact, and like with Kai, I mean, you have things that where it's much more than just the facts, but it's also a way to say, how did you get to that point, and what drove you, and what did you hope to actually accomplish from it, and did you think you did?
If you are just joining us on the Metro, we're chatting about StoryFest 2024 with one of its producers, McArdle Hankin, and two local journalists, including WDET's Quinn Kleinfelter and music writer for the Metro Times, Con Santori Davison. We're gonna bring him back into the conversation. But Quinn, before we do, I want you to get into what it was like once again getting the music put together and the composition of the music. Did you ask them to do something like Marvel?
I told him it needs to be dramatic and kind of represent myself and everything. No, I don't. I have no clue at this point what it's going to sound like.
Oh wow!
It could be a dirge. So the emotiveness of what they're going to do is all in McArdle's hands, and I really like you, McArdle.
Oh.
So be nice.
Yes. Yes. And before we bring McArdle back in, Con, just building on that as well, what are you most excited about when you actually do get and hit the stage Thursday night and you're in front of the audience? What is one of the biggest things that you're excited about, and what do you hope that audiences take away from an experience like this?
I guess the first thing I'm excited about would actually be getting in front of people. I'm a former spoken word poet, and so I sometimes I miss the days of getting in front of audiences. It kind of takes me back to that. From an audience perspective, I really hope they enjoy what was being presented in a different way. Like, I hope that maybe they'll even go and read the article. You know how a lot of times you read the book and see the movie, or you read the book and listen to the audio book. I hope they have a very a strong experience. I mean, they I can't think of the word, but I just hope they're able to relate and engage. That's the word I'm looking for. That they can engage with the subject matter and are captivated and are listening and enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
Con, can you tell us a little bit about the story that you're going to be telling?
Just a sneak peek.
Just a little bit.
Bullet points.
Okay, just a little bit. In 2006, I interviewed a aspiring hip hop artist named PL. And at that time, he was a rising star locally and nationally. And then I kind of stopped hearing from him for a while. He kind of faded off the radar, as, a lot of aspiring musicians do. I found him, looked him up again in 2023. And by this time, he was doing these amazing things that were not necessarily related to being, a hip-hop star in the traditional sense. And so I get into how he, his journey through that. And also, this was the first time I interviewed somebody in such a time span, like between almost 20 years. Like I said, first interview in 2006, and the second one being in 2023.
Wow. Very interested in to follow along with that story. Yeah. And Quinn, once again, bringing you back into the conversation, your bullet point story.
Yeah, it's hard. It's one that I originally did about 10 years ago, and it was one that I really struggled about whether I ever even wanted to really do it, because it concerned a guy that I considered a friend who was homeless in Detroit, and we had talked for a long time. He consoled me when my wife passed, and he wound up passing, and I found out he didn't have many people to try to help him. And I talked to the city and said, I've only got X amount of times if I'm going to try to help him to make arrangements to get him buried. And they said, oh, no. They said, he'll be here for a long time because we have no money. This was going into the time when Detroit was heading towards bankruptcy. And they could only bury people a few times a year. And so they had hundreds of bodies piling up that nobody claimed. And it became, a story that took off and got a lot of attention. I did it for WDAT. I did it for NPR. I did a follow-up for both. And it wound up being that not only were we able to help get him taken care of, but, I had to struggle because it was a guy that I really felt was a friend. He tried as much as he could to help me. Yeah. And I really wondered about using somebody like that as the grist for making a story out of. And so that, I think, is part of what the Story Fest is just, what actually led me to try to do that and the effects that came from finally taking that step to put it out.
Yeah. McArdle, bringing you back into it. I mean, just listening to that and then listening to Khan as well. And these are, totally different stories, but their processes, come together to bring this amazing image on stage that we'll see Thursday. If you can, talk about the power of storytelling. It's one of the most human basic things. We've been telling stories for a very long time as humans. So the power of storytelling, just, why is that so important to you?
Well, it's important to me because I think it's the way that we get through life, right? We tell ourselves stories to make sense of the world around us, and it really is one of the oldest artistic mediums. It's something that our ancestors did thousands of years ago, and it's something that no matter how fast technology, I think, evolves around us, storytelling at its core doesn't really change that much. It's, you have characters, you have conflict, you have a beginning, a middle, and sometimes an end, and I think that's really interesting. And with the program that we have Thursday night, Detroit is really coming to life. And I think these two stories are great examples because Khan is sort of the story of a guy emerging from the shadows. Yeah. And it's sort of this heroic story filled with, sort of tension and unexpected moments. And then Quinn's I love because it's not something you hear from journalists very often. It's sort of this wrestling and the work behind the story that's happening in his subconscious, actually. And these contradictions that people have, and how that gets us into news stories. And so I think, these are great examples to have on the show today, and both fit the theme of what this Story Fest is actually going to be, which is singing from the shadows.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, McArdle Hankin is one of the producers of StoryFest 2024 with Backpack Media. We have Khan Santori Davison and Quinn Kleinfelter, who will also join the show to chat more about their involvement with StoryFest 2024. StoryFest 2024 is this Thursday at the Detroit Film Theater at the Detroit Institute of Arts. Tickets are on sale right now. I want to say thank you to all of our guests for joining us on the show and really opening our eyes to the power of storytelling.
Thank you so much, Tia. I'll see you at the show on Thursday.
Yes, you will.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
This This is the Metro on 101.9 WDET-FM. I'm Tia Graham here with Sam Corey.
Hey, how you doing, Tia? How you feeling?
Doing pretty well. I'm doing so well because the Tigers beat the Cleveland Guardians 3-0 in Game 2 of the American League Division Series. No one scored until the top of the ninth inning. However, when pinch hitter Kerry Carpenter launched a 3-run home run into the right field stands at Progressive Field, it was all over. It evened the series at a game apiece. The Tigers are coming home, okay? They're coming back to Comerica Park for Game 3 tomorrow.
When's that first pitch?
That first pitch is at 3:08 p.m. To all the managers out there, your peoples will not be paying attention to work.
It's amazing. Let's keep the magic rolling.
Let's keep it rolling. Coming
it's been a wild
up,
season.
Tim Meadows is hosting a comedy event to help people get out and vote. We'll hear that conversation a little bit later. You stay right there. It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET-FM. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Sam Corey. And just a heads up, tickets for that Story Fest event are at wdet.org/events. That's wdet.org/events. And now we're talking about another event that's coming up this weekend. Detroit native Tim Meadows is making it a point to bring support to this year's presidential election. This weekend, the comedian is hosting Comedy Caucus at Flagstar Strand Theater in Pontiac in support of Governor Gretchen Whitmer's Fight Like Hell PAC. The night will include stand-up comedy, live music, and will be encouraging all those in attendance to register to vote. Meadows recently spoke with our own Tia Graham about the event and the importance of voting, especially this election cycle.
Why is this benefit comedy show important to you?
I wanted to help get out the word, and I wanted to get people out to vote. I wanted to get people out to register. And I just felt like this is a big election, and I just want to do my part, especially in Michigan. I really want Michigan to have a big part in this election. So that was my inspiration.
And what about the message, fight like hell, especially the PAC there where Governor Gretchen Whitmer gets you fired up and pumped up to do this work?
Well, that was the thing that got me pumped up was just the actual situation in our country and the heated rhetoric between the two sides. That got me pumped up. And it made me, I like the phrase fight like hell and the PAC and the work that they're doing. I really respect Governor Whitmer, and the PAC is really going to help out the Whitmer, the Harris Walz campaign and other down ballot Democratic candidates, as well as women's rights and fighting for those kind of things. So I'm happy to do it. It's my pleasure to do this show. It's going to be a fun night, too.
And Tim, from your personal experience as a comedian and an actor and a voting citizen, which is really important, you're a voting citizen, how important is this election compared to others? I heard you talking a little bit about it from both sides. So how important is this particular election?
It's important. I mean, trust me, I'm the least politically active person. And I just felt like, I think that it's, this election is more than about just, democracy or just another president, having another president. So it's about women's rights to choose. It's about for our relationship to other countries, our relationship with each other in this country. And I just my hope is that we can ease up the rhetoric and we can ease up and be empathetic towards each other a lot more.
And Tim, you were just saying that, you're not the most politically involved, but you do get out and you voice your vote and you voice your opinion there. As a celebrity, when people tell you to stick to jokes, what is your response?
I would say, okay, I will stick to jokes, but I will also speak out for things that I believe in. It's not like it's a new thing to hear a celebrity or athlete speak out for political reasons. Anybody from Muhammad Ali to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I mean, this is not, it's not something that surprised people. And also, I'm an American citizen, just like everybody else, and I have the right to speak up or be quiet and then to support or not support somebody. So the idea that somebody or anyone should shut up and just do what they're job is ridiculous. Not even political commentators should shut up and not give their opinion. Yeah, we want everybody's opinion. Everybody has a right to it,
That's a perfect segue to my next question is about the right to vote. And we're seeing so many different things being pushed across this country to stop a lot of folks from getting out to vote, whether it is absentee ballot, whatever it may be. We're seeing a lot of people seeing obstacles making it to the polls. So when you see things like that, what do you tell people, especially if they may have an obstacle or just in general, what are you telling people, your messaging to get out and vote?
Is to use any means necessary to vote. And if they're putting up if there are roadblocks or things that you think are stopping you from voting or discouraging you to vote, then get past those things. In some states have write-in voting, some have absentee ballots, some you can go to and vote the day of. So I would just encourage people to just remember, like, people died and fought and died for our rights to vote, especially African American people. But everybody, the right for African American and women to vote, it was for all of us. And I don't think we should take that lightly. And there's been years where I've been like, sort of sitting on my hands as going like, well, I don't really care. So I'm not going to vote. But that hasn't happened a lot. And this election is not going to happen. I'm going to early vote. I'm going to do it happily. And I'm going to get out there and try to encourage other people to do the same thing, which is what we're doing with this show on October 12th at the Strand Theater in Pontiac. We're just trying to get people out to vote while we're there. We're going to have entertainment. There's going to be a lot of female comedians from around the country are coming to perform. Michael Shannon, the actor, is going to be singing and performing with Jason Narducci. We're going to have posters to sell. There's going to be a meet and greet. There's going to be other surprises. We're just asking people to come out, buy tickets now, and help make this thing a success.
That was Tia Graham speaking with Tim Meadows about the event coming up this weekend. Tia, I love that conversation. That was just delightful.
Well, thank you. Tim was very open and honest about his views and thoughts about what's going on in our country and politics. And, that's all you can ask for is an open, honest conversation. He definitely did that. So people, if you were interested in the comedy show this weekend, definitely head on out to Pontiac.
Yeah, and it's so nice talking to Tim. I mean, we had him on the program before, and he's just such a lovely human being. Yeah, he's just so lovely, and so I'm so glad we got to talk to him again. I'm so glad he's doing stuff around the area.
Yeah, he's back to the area, back home. He loves being back home. He says it feels really, really good to be back and seeing all the growth and everything that's happening in the city. So it's always fun to see the sun come back, see the kids come back to Detroit. It's always great.
And speaking of sun, today, sunny and 67 degrees. Yep, I did it. Wednesday, sunny and 66 degrees. Thursday, sunny and 64 degrees. The sun's out.
You know why it's out? Because it's your birthday.
Oh, Tia.
Happy birthday. It's your birthday. That's why the sun came out.
Thank you, Tia.
Yes. What's coming up on the show?
Coming up on the show, we'll discuss what the Michigan Department of Transportation is planning to do to slow down drivers along Gratiot. Stay with us.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET-FM. I'm Tia Graham here with Sam Corey, the producer of the Metro. He's on the mic today. And Sam, this conversation in particular, all of us on the Metro have a personal stake in public transportation or transportation.
Transportation, yeah, pedestrian safety, public transit. This is something that gets us pretty riled up here.
It gets us pumped up around here. And as a Detroit native, seeing bike lanes and new pedestrian walking paths along roads is kind of a new experience for us. It is known that Detroit is not safe for pedestrians and often for people driving their cars as well. But you don't have to tell the people who navigate Gratiot the fact that between 2019 and 2023, there were over 2,500 crashes and 38 fatalities on the road. But one of Detroit's most dangerous streets may get renovated soon. The city now plans to spend millions of federal dollars to reduce spending on Gratiot. To set up those plans, the Michigan Department of Transportation says it will conduct a study of the project. To talk about the study and why Gratiot is so dangerous, we have Matt Galbraith here. He is the Metro Region Planning Manager for the Michigan Department of Transportation. Matt, welcome to the Metro.
Yeah, hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So Gratiot is being used less by cars now, but is a lot more dangerous. How did that happen?
Yeah, well, there's a number of things that sort of play into that. One of the main things with Gratiot is the speeding on the corridor, and there's reasons why folks are speeding on that corridor. One thing is the way it's currently designed. There's Gratiot goes back to the Woodward plan, where we have our 5 major arterial spokes that span out to the suburbs from downtown Detroit. And with that, you have some complex geometry at some of the intersections along Gratiot. And along with that, the roadway itself was designed at a time, prior to the interstate system. So it was really used as the main artery in and out of the city and to downtown. So things have changed over time. So this is really an opportunity for us to take a fresh look at Gratiot. And ultimately implement changes to meet the needs of today and beyond.
So you want to make the road a little bit more versatile, a little bit more options for those, for pedestrians as well as buses and cars. How do you plan to do that?
Yeah, so as a part of our Gratiot Avenue Planning and Environmental Linkage Study, there's a robust engagement. So it's really about engaging with stakeholders, engaging with the public, engaging with the folks who use this roadway each day. And, we heard issues of safety, and we heard issues particularly with pedestrians and bicyclists and our transit riders. So we know the road operates really well today for autos, for vehicles, freight. Moving cars is what it works well for today. It's got 3 lanes in each direction. And it's more capacity than it needs. So how do we look at changing the roadway to make it safer for pedestrians? And so one of the major things that are coming out of the Pell are alternatives that look at reducing the amount of lanes. One of the issues for pedestrians is the distance it takes to cross Gratiot. It's 90 feet from one side of the curb to the next side of the curb. So it's a long distance for pedestrians to travel.
Yeah.
And then also on top of that, you have long distances from signalized intersections for pedestrians to get to the other side safely. So that's another thing that we're looking at as a part of this planning and environmental linkage study is the potential for curb cuts and bump outs, which reduce the curb and the distance it takes to get from one side of the street to the other, but then also mid-block crossings for pedestrians, pedestrian refuge islands, things like that are going to help folks get from one side of the road to the other.
So speaking about some of those things, some of the options or some of the other things that you guys are going to be playing with to try to figure out what to do, have you been considering giving buses their own dedicated lane running down the middle of the road? What is the feasibility of that, and how fast could it potentially speed bus times? Are we seeing something like that happening?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and certainly, yes. So we have 2 acceptable alternatives right now, so we're nearing the end of the study. Okay. We're going to have our final engagement as part of this Pell process. But, yeah, our 2 alternatives, one of them does include center-running transit-only lanes, very similar to the original Pell plans for Michigan Avenue through Corktown. Certainly, there's, challenges with that. But you would naturally see, faster transit times. One of the things, though, is because Gratiot moves so quickly that, by adding dedicated transit lanes right now, it really wouldn't have much an effect on transit times and how soon buses can get to their stops. Once you reduce the amount of roadways, you're going to add a little bit of congestion, so it'll naturally slow down a little bit. So that plays a role. So it's right now we're working with our stakeholders, with the city, our partners with the city, our partners with DDOT and SMART and the RTA really look at this option. So it's certainly a viable option. There still needs a lot of work and a lot of coordination to come.
Matt, Sam here. I just wanted to jump in and ask you a little bit about those bus times. You said something that I thought was interesting, which was if you give a bus a dedicated lane running down the middle of the road, it won't necessarily speed up bus times because there's congestion around. I guess that is really interesting to me because it's not my understanding of how dedicated bus lanes work. Is this just true in like this model? Like if the dedicated bus lanes were on the side of the road or the outside two lanes, would that less be the case? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so I might have misspoke a little bit there, but what I meant is if you were to add dedicated bus lanes today, in our models, we're not seeing a whole lot of difference in the time it takes from buses to get from one stop to the next. And really that's because of the environment out there today where, there's 3 lanes in each direction. There's way more capacity than the amount of traffic volume that we have on the roadway. So delays in the bus time really aren't an issue at this point. But the thing is, once you reduce from 3 lanes to 2 lanes in each direction, you are introducing a little bit of congestion, an acceptable level of congestion. And that's where the dedicated transit lanes will see the benefit.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Matt Galbraith, Metro Region Planning Manager for the Michigan Department of Transportation, about potential reconstruction efforts on Gratiot. Now, the project is slated to begin in 2026. What is the city of Detroit's role in the project, and how long might it take to complete once it gets off the ground?
Yeah, so the city of Detroit has been integral in this whole process. So there's sort of simultaneous efforts going on right now. The planning and environmental linkage study that I had mentioned is more of a mid to long range plan. And really at the core of that is it's really about robust engagement with stakeholders and the public. Obviously, folks from the city are critical to that conversation. But in addition to that more mid to long range effort, there's a shorter range effort that we've been working really closely with the city, and the city actually had applied and was awarded a $10 million grant through the federal Safe Streets for All program. And so what that is going to help us with is that's going to give us the opportunity and the finances to move ahead with some of these ideas a lot sooner than we would have if we were to come through with like a full reconstruction of the roadway. So you're going to see a lot more demonstration projects in the coming years here, and I think that's that 2026 timeline that you had mentioned. So you'll see things like curb cuts and leading pedestrian intervals at signals that kind of give a quick start for pedestrians to cross the road before the cars start to move. You'll see mid-block crossings. You'll see centerline hardening. All of these things that are going to be able to be quickly deployed and that we'll be able to track and read the data and see how they operate out there before we come in with that mid and long-range vision and that reconstruction of the roadway.
Matt Galbraith, Metro Region Planning Manager for the Michigan Department of Transportation. I want to say thank you so much for joining us this morning on the Metro.
Yeah, thank you so much. Happy to do it.
That is the Metro for, what is today?
Tuesday, October 8th.
Exactly, because it's Sam Corey's birthday. And just want to reiterate, StoryFest is this Thursday, October 10th. Tickets right now at wdet.org/events. You can hear some of those cool conversations that we just referred to on the show today, featuring Quinn Kleinfelter and Con Centauri Davison.
I'm so excited about it.
Exactly, me too.
The show is produced by Tia Graham, Sam Corey, David Lyons, and Jack Philbrand. Our engineer is Nate Bender. Music by Sam Bobines and Will Sessions.
Indeed, indeed. You can listen to recent episodes online at wdet.org, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. It could be Spotify, it could be Apple Music, or you can go to YouTube if you like it that way.
You can get in so many different places.
We're
all around the place. We're
all
everywhere.
All around the world.
The Metro is a production of WDET, a listener-supported service of Wayne State University. If you like what you hear, as you're saying, You can go to the Metro. You should consider supporting the Metro, becoming a member at wdet.org/donate.
I think honestly we're so excited it's your birthday. We're
I
so
know, I'm starting to
giddy.
bubble around. I'm so excited.
I know. I hope someone brought cake or something. This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. Thank you so much for listening, and we will return tomorrow.